So thanks for joining myself and Matt Cartwright, who, look, I want to say a huge thanks to Martin Skinner. So Martin introduced me to Matt. Martin's projects, Matt Cartwright and 12 architects and master planners have worked on. So look, huge thanks to, whenever a property personality like Martin or Nicole Bremner or whoever they are, introduced me to, some key people in their team. Martin's introduced me to a number of planners. He's introduced me to 12 architects and master planners who are based here in the magnificent, well, I was going to say the Shard, but literally 200 yards from the Shard. You can see the Shard behind us, which came about in 2000 initially, on the back of a napkin in a Berlin restaurant, as they say, with Enzo Piano. So I don't know where Matt sits in terms of inspiration for architects, but I'm sure what you're keen to find out, rather than who's Matt's inspiration, is about the driving force in overcoming obstacles, whether that's obstacles which Martin, for example, has overcome, or other clients. So your pedigree is not just UK, it's also international as well, and it's like a wow factor of massive projects. So look, I think one of the projects you worked on, or working on in fact, is an airport. Another one is a shopping centre, and that's comparable to Westfield.
Yes. In
terms of size.
Yes. Yeah. The airport we're working on is initial terminal is 50,000 square metres. It's 2 months from completion. It's in Russia, and it will be open for the FIFA World Cup. And the shopping scheme is a retail and leisure complex, 120,000 square metres, again in Russia. And then we're obviously working on larger schemes here in the UK, universities, residential schemes with inspired assets.
So inspired assets, sorry, I use Martin's name rather than inspired assets. Martin probably would tell me off, but or maybe not. So inspired assets, Martin Skinner's created that organisation. It's been around for quite a few years now. A number of developments, mostly in Croydon. I think he's got one or two outside.
Yeah, we've just finished one with him in Sutton. We're working on another one which has just got planning in Chertsey. We've done a scheme with him in Crawley, which is just about to go to site. We did the planning application for his scheme at Coombe Cross in Croydon, and I know he's worked on other schemes and is working on other schemes in Croydon.
So I asked my co-host Luke Hamill what questions I should be asking Matt, and it was about overcoming obstacles, because that's one of the challenges for developers, how they overcome obstacles, and what would be the key principles which you would suggest. So a developer, when they meet you from day one, ideally what should they be doing, how to work with you best, not to come into that situation where their work can get jeopardized at the end of the day.
I think initially it's about getting the right team and the right individuals within that team that get on, that share a common vision, understand each other's drivers, each other's brands. Projects are never easy to realise, so the good times are always great, and I think when you get difficulties, it's having that team to overcome those difficulties. So I think that's number one. I think then once you've got the team together, you've got to get a realistic program, and you've got to do and create a robust development appraisal. And that means engaging obviously with the local authorities, with the planning departments. That's obviously can be tricky, and it's ensuring that your development plan enables you to come up with the right design, has the right time in it to get it to market, and at the end of the day makes you the money that you need to make so you can do another one.
Sure. So you mentioned about the right team, and of course for the building behind us, the magnificent Shard, that was the likes of Piano being involved in the development of that building, and he was a key integral part of that building. How did you and Martin come together? Because your experience was not necessarily, as you mentioned on a panel in April, in terms of residential, it was much more commercial.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, one of your major projects outside of 12 master planners or 12 architects and master planners was in Sheffield, a building which was nominated for the REBA
Local. Yeah, it was regional awards in Yorkshire. That actually was the project that brought Martin and I together. I think Martin was looking to develop an external brand for his developments. He'd created a very strong internal brand, and so I think his attraction was what we could bring to the table. And because we hadn't worked on residential buildings, I think he saw that as a benefit, because it would mean that we would think more openly about those projects. And so we worked on Sutton and Combe Cross together. And I think both our businesses were looking to create a similar brand, a strong, memorable, distinctive brand that differentiated itself from other products on the market.
Sure. So, in terms of functionality and design, Martin's a big advocate of the micro style building. Where do you see the property market going in terms of design of buildings and things like modular as well? You hear a lot about modular design buildings. How far do you think that will solve the housing issue of not enough houses being built quickly enough? Do you think that's really one of the keys, or do you think that's just not really as important as other factors, and where trends are going as well?
I mean, clearly micro apartments, compact apartments have been on the market for a while. I think it's created an interesting discussion within the context of planning, and particularly under permitted development, and the quality of micro apartments. And I think the issue is quality as well as size, and how you actually develop those types of buildings within the planning arena. And at the moment there is a clear discrepancy between the micro apartment and the space standards that exist nationally within the UK. I think micro apartments do have a place to pay in a place within the marketplace, but it's about getting the quality of those developments. And I think the work that we've done here has, at times, we've walked away from some developers that have asked us to look at micro apartments because we don't think they understand actually what it is like to live in those environments.
Well, why have you walked away? Is it because their budget's not sufficient enough to make it a wow factor for the client who's moving in?
I think it's it's often the space. So they push the space to in their eyes, an acceptable area to live in. We think they're unacceptable. That they often take on poor quality buildings and just do a pure permitted development scheme on them, which we believe don't provide the type of space.
So that's quite interesting that you're prepared to move work on which doesn't fit your remit, but again, it's about your brand at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And brand is really key to you. So when people talk about brand, apart from your magnificent shirts, maybe at some point, one of my meets this year, you might see me in one of those style shirts, maybe. And in a way it's a signature, because people know that they're going to see you in one of these amazing colourful shirts if they ever meet you in a formal meeting. What do you think is a brand? And in terms of micro, you mentioned, and one thing I love, I don't know if it's on all of Martin's projects, but I noticed one of his developments, they've got a beautiful bath inside, so it's not just a shower, which I thought it would have been. It was actually a nice bath, which is amazing how you've managed to do that in a micro apartment. So key thing is about brand. Let's just focus on brand for just a few more moments. What are the key things for developers to be concerned about or aware about when creating that micro brand?
I think it's understanding their clients. So who are they selling or renting these buildings to? what is their target audience and what does that audience want. And I think the micro apartment or the compact apartment is looking at a group of people that are less possession driven and more experience driven. So for them, life is about travel, it's about eating out, it's about meeting friends. It's not about how many TVs, how big their stereo system is, and therefore their home is a place to touch down in. It's not a place that they necessarily want to store or hoard all their possessions. And so I think you have to understand, what do they want. Often the compact living provide social spaces, which are now residents to create a sense of community, both inside and out, which complement their own four walls, if you like. So I think, you know, brand is not just about your own brand or your client's brand, but it is their client's brand as well, and I think that's really important.
So how do you, and we will go much more detail, I'm sure, on Thursday the 21st, yards away from here. You don't have very far to go. Or I'll probably do that day, but in fact my other speaker that day is coming all the way from, well, he's going back to Southampton. I'm not sure where he's coming from, but in terms of going into more detail about the brand and, you know, how you think about, you know, putting yourself in that person's shoes who's potentially going to walk through that particular door. Now, people may be thinking, look, it's great that you're based in London, although you're an international company. That's the first thing to say. So you're not just solely doing projects in London, and your experience has been both in London and Sheffield in the UK, and also Russia, and I'm sure I've missed off a number of different locations. How can people find out more about Matt Cartwright of 12 Architects and Master Planners? Is there a website, which I'm sure there is, because, you know,
www.12architects.com.
So it's very, very easy, 12architects.com. So the key thing, just to let you know what we're going to cover on the 21st of, did I say July? September. It feels like July here though, because look, I have to shoot off in a moment, but this is a beautiful rooftop. I wasn't expecting such a really nice rooftop, and it's interesting, you know, Matt was talking about, you know, benefits of the rooftop and so forth, you know, not just for clients but also for employees as well. But just to summarize, on 21st of this month, which is September, London Bridge taking place, the event, yards away from the magnificent Shard, and literally covering how to make sure that you overcome those obstacles. That's what Luke really has suggested to me to cover, but we're going to go into a lot more detail about the brand as well. Is there anything else, because you've got loads of notes there?
I'll look forward to the 21st, and I'm sure there'll be hopefully some questions and some interesting conversation, and I'll try and put some pictures together which might make it even more interesting rather than lots of notes.
Sure.
And then maybe as a follow-up on the 21st, if people really want to come and see what we're up to, then they're more than welcome to come and sit on this terrace and have a beer.
Wow. this terrace, absolutely amazing, as I say. So huge thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
Huge thanks to the listeners as well. It's been a bit tricky for me because I can't see any of your questions this afternoon. So I need to put my shades on, to be fair. You know, I wasn't expecting in September to be putting shades on, but I want to say huge thanks for taking time out. Huge thanks for bringing me up to this beautiful terrace.
You're very welcome.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to catching up with you on. Cheers.